Hello everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be watching Our Ancestry Was Hidden to Protect Us, episode 2 of the Finding Lola series from NYTN. Now, the last reaction I did was the first episode of this series, which was Why Did Our Family Change Ethnicities in the 1930s? It was something like that, I can't remember the exact title. Actually, well, I have it here. In 1930, our ethnicity changed. Very succinct. It's been a little bit since I've done a reaction. I've been doing a bunch of traveling, going to different conferences, both forensic conferences and genealogy conferences. I've been really busy doing a lot of investigative work, so I know a lot of things have kind of slowed down on both of my channels, but I'm hoping to kind of get back in the swing of things. This is my first reaction in a little while. I'm planning to react to this episode and then the next 2 episodes of the Finding Lola series. It's a 4-part episode, so I'll be doing those one after the other. I definitely got a lot of positive reaction on that last one, so a lot of people really wanted me to do the whole thing, so I definitely will. If you haven't seen my reaction to the first episode, be sure to go check that out. I'll have it linked down below, but let's just go ahead and jump on into this.
As I've worked through this story and kind of started the journey, I've wondered, why not just go back home? Like, everything's falling apart around you. You're being discriminated against, and you don't have family support, and you kind of don't have a leg to stand on. And I just really didn't understand, like, why didn't she go back home? I'm so glad that she didn't, because then I wouldn't be here.
My father passed. We had no help, and my mother had to go out and work and support 8 kids. My grandfather, my father's father, okay, he owned boarding houses and pubs. So he had made money, but no help. He did not like his children didn't marry Irish. First time I knew that I was part Indian, we were in his house. I think my mother was going there trying to get some money to bury my father. That didn't happen. He poked his head out around the corner and he said, make sure those little Indians stay in their place. And I looked at my oldest sister, Maggie, and I was like, what's that?
It's sad how those prejudices from back in the day really did affect families and family dynamics, and it's sad that the grandfather wouldn't help out, even burying his own son.
I was told by my mother that my grandfather, who was John Donnelly, that his family was 100% Irish and totally against him marrying Lola, and that they rejected her because she was too ethnic. I didn't find that out till maybe 2-3 years ago, that there was ever kind of a rejection from the family, because I had asked my mother, well, here Grandma's with 8 children. Where's the rest of the family on the other side when he died to help you? And she said, oh, they had nothing to do with us. I think the family's going to come in and help somehow. And no, she had absolutely no help from anybody.
My mother's experience growing up, there's 2 things going on. Number 1 is you're getting along, right? And what you also have available to you. Not typical things that you would find in the South, you would find in Albany, New York. But then the effect of poverty. My mother would say they were hungry. They were starving. They would raid people's gardens to get food. She said she would never have cabbage soup again, because that really is just a thing of water with the cabbage leaf in it. She loved the tail of the chicken. I didn't even know you ate that. It's gross. It's just cartilage and fat, and yeah, it's gross. My mother's phrase was, with the cow you ate everything but the moo, and with the pig you ate everything but the oink, because they didn't have anything. So I would think that would have a lot of effect on what Lola would be able to share with her family. Desperate times, desperate measures. Whatever is available is what you're eating.
And so my mother's brothers and sisters, they all dropped out of school very young and went to work. Katie was one of the older sisters. My mother was one of the younger ones. And she told me that Aunt Katie works in Albany. And Aunt Katie would distract people. She would let Grammy, my mother, marry and steal stuff. They didn't have food. And my mother never told me about that until, I'm going to say, a couple of years ago. I felt sad that it was that bad, that they had no help, that they had to really rely on themselves.
When my dad passed away, I think I was 5 years old, or probably 6 years old. We didn't have any toys because we were very poor people, so we didn't have any toys. I had no toys.
I remember these people would come up with a horse and, would dress you up with a cowboy hat on, take your picture, and then try to sell the picture to the adult in the family. And the first time this woman come out and said to the guy that had the horse and stuff like that, he said, "Don't bother with them kids, they're poor." And I was like, "What the hell is that?" And I had to find out what poor was. And we were poor.
Once I found out about Lola being of Indian descent, things started to make more sense to me. I'm not saying that she was ashamed of it. I think she was shunned for it. So she just said, "Hey, I'm going to keep it to myself. You can let people think what they want."
Did you ever say anything about what it was like growing up in Louisiana?
No, she never did. Never told us anything about Louisiana.
So is that where she met your father?
Yes, he met my father. My father was working as an engineer on airplanes. They sent him down to work on an airplane that was down there. And so he went down there, stayed at a place that was close to my mother's house, and he met my mother there. So that they started dating, and he married her and brought her back to Troy, New York, which she hated. My brother Jack was born in Louisiana.
So not only did she leave, she left, went to New York, her husband died, she's in a crappy spot, and came back down to visit multiple times, and still came back to New York after all of that. She had every opportunity to stay.
I feel like you'd have more opportunity to go back home.
Yeah, she was rejected by her husband's family.
I would think about the decision that she made to leave with John. Sometimes when we make a decision to leave, she had a relationship and a loving relationship with her family at home and things like that. But sometimes you've made a choice and you're like, I think I have to follow it through. And if there's a path through, then that's the path I'm on. I'm following it.
Why did she make that decision to not go back? Or why did she make the decision to come? That family was not accepting of Lola and the children because they weren't white Irish or something. I don't know. And so they weren't supportive of them when the father, her husband, passed away. So you would think that if she didn't have any family around here and her, in-laws were not supportive of her, that she would go back to where her roots were, but she didn't. So there must have been something here that was appealing to her that seemed, this is a better place for me and my children to stay. Even though I don't think that they were financially in a good place, she made it work. And the kids all grew up and they did great. So whatever she did, kudos to her because she pulled it off.
And I would consider the legacy that Lola has to be very successful in all of us. And so I would love to see the kind of grit and determination, even if it was ugly and messy. I would love to see that story unfold.
I don't know exactly what my grandmother would think about me starting this journey in earnest. She was always a little bit reticent to talk about this stuff, but I don't know if it was from a place of hiding things herself or if it was from a place of just not really knowing. I'm curious about the stories in the rest of my family. So I know how I was raised, and I know like what my mom was told. What about if there's family still in Louisiana? I feel like all of these people could like kind of fill in the gaps of knowledge, because I think a lot of the knowledge that we have is wrong.
Under the Mississippi sun, I wonder if my time has come.
Which we already know that, she's driving down to Louisiana because there's that clip of her and Daniel going down there, so. Another good episode. These are really interesting. It is a really sad story that the father's family wasn't willing to help at all. And, you know, I do wonder if maybe the father's family knew a bit more about Lola than her kids and descendants know, which maybe that's one reason why she didn't want them to know. Although I guess the comment about, you know, those Indian children would indicate they thought that they were Indian. But if Lola was African American, then it is possible that maybe the parents knew, and that was one of the reasons why they also rejected her. It's just sad that that's how a lot of people back then thought and dealt with things, and there are a lot of families that when you look at their family trees, it's these instances of certain family members being toxic to other family, or not being willing to help, or just being ridiculous about certain things. But at the same time, it makes me wonder what type of things the descendants of the father's family might know about this, if they know anything, because maybe there is more to the story, not necessarily saying that they had any sort of right to cut them out or anything like that, but, you know, there's always two sides to a story, and it'd be interesting to see if there's anything on that side, the Irish side, where the descendants know, like, oh yeah, well, my, you know, grandpa's brother, because presumably if Lola's husband is the great-grandfather and grandfather of a lot of people, so Danielle, I think, is the great-granddaughter of Jack Donnelly, I think it was. So I'm sure Jack had siblings, I would assume, based from what was said, it sounded like he did. So I'd assume those people have descendants that would possibly be alive, and many of them would be grandchildren or great-grandchildren, and probably would have known their, you know, grandfather, the sibling of Jack, maybe even knew Jack. So maybe they know what was going on with that. Basically, I wonder if this would be something that Danielle would ever pursue, of contacting those relatives in the family. Because I know a story like this may be something that would make someone, you know, feel maybe not so inclined to reach out to that side of the family, because you already know that in the past, that side of the family rejected your side of the family. And there's that possibility that they could do it again. I'm hoping in the upcoming episodes that we start to see a bit more on Daniel's research, and not necessarily just the interviews with the descendants, although those are very interesting. I'm hoping that maybe she starts to kind of dive into here's what we found, and possibly especially following her along in the story of going to Louisiana and finding out about Lola's family. And of course, I'm hoping that DNA gets more involved in everything, and we can start seeing what the deal is with that. There was mention of DNA testing in the first episode, but I don't think there was any mention of actually showing it yet. So hopefully we can see some DNA results. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to check out more reactions just like this, be sure to watch this video right here. Thank you to my Patreon patrons and YouTube members.